Fani MMA na całym świecie czekali na ten moment. Długo wyczekiwana walka pomiędzy Dricusem Du Plessis i Chamzatem Czimajewem została oficjalnie ogłoszona na gali UFC 319 16 sierpnia. Zawodnik, były mistrz KSW, zmierzy się z niepokonanym Czeczenem. Jest z nami Dricus Du Plessis, mistrz wagi średniej UFC. Dricus, it's nice to see you. And here you as always.
Oh man, good to be back.
Yeah, so as I said before, one moment ago, the timing couldn't have been better for this interview because the much long-awaited fight between you and Chamzat Chimajew, or Shakespeare Chimajew, as you wrote at one point, has been officially announced. What do you think about this matchup? If you could compare this one to other challenges that you've had in the UFC?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, timing is perfect. I didn't even know that the fight's going to be announced. It was announced yesterday. Last night it was midnight in South Africa, and my phone just went crazy. So I assumed something happened, and yeah, the fight was announced. So yeah, I couldn't be happier that it's finally here. But in terms of differences, it's not any different for me. Every fight is the most important fight, and this fight is no different. For me, this has been a long-awaited fight. Chamzat's been a storm in the sport for long, but he couldn't get to the title for how long. So finally I get to prove myself against the guy that people seem to think that is unbeatable, and I can't wait to be the guy to beat him.
I see. So there were rumors that this fight could have happened on International Fight Week, but of course there were rumors about some your injury, maybe something minor. I don't know. So maybe you could tell us if there were real talks about June to fight Chamzat then.
Yeah, there were definitely talks about fighting Chamzat in June, but it was never set. They said maybe we do June, maybe we do August. I mean, for me, it was just to wait and see what the UFC wants to do. But I was in talks with the UFC the whole time, and I knew what was going on, and they didn't go with that fight for International Fight Week. So the injury rumors were ridiculous. They were just rumors. There's no truth to that. No injuries. After a fight, it takes some time to recover, but that's the fight game. There was no injuries that kept me from training or that I couldn't fight, but August is perfect for me.
So I think looking at this fight and the magnitude, could you compare it to, is it bigger fight than, for example, Israel Adesanya that you've had? Because I think Chamzat is being perceived by many fans as the boogeyman of the division. And I think this is a great challenge for you, but also great opportunity.
No, definitely not. I think he is seen as a boogeyman because, he's only beaten one real middleweight, one of the top middleweights, and that was Robert Whittaker. I've beaten the whole middleweight division. Every top guy in that division I've went through, the top 5, went through the ranks. So for me, to see him as a boogeyman, absolutely not. The boogeyman has a title, and he doesn't have a title, not even close. He's never even had a title shot. So no, he's not a boogeyman. Is he great? Yes, I think he's a very, very good fighter. But so is Israel Adesanya, so is Robert Whittaker, so is Sean Strickland. That's why they had titles. If he was so great, he would have had a title by now.
So when I wrote on Twitter that I will be interviewing you today, there were a few questions, I think more than few, like 30 or 40 questions for you. So I picked a few of them to ask you, and the one is connected to what you've been talking about right now. What do you have that the previous opponents from Chamzat didn't have to stop his takedowns for the start, to win this fight?
I think the biggest thing about Chamzat is look at the way a guy like Gilbert Burns fought him, a guy like Kamaru Usman. So yes, he took Kamaru Usman down in the first round. He beat him. It was a great first round. But Kamaru Usman had 10 days notice. Like he said, he was on the couch when they phoned him on a 10-day notice. When he fought Gilbert Burns, yes, you can take me down. Anybody can take anyone down. But what are you going to do with it? I think what I have is size, strength. I'm a real middleweight. I'm a big middleweight. He fought Kamaru Usman at middleweight, but Kamaru Usman is not a middleweight. He's a welterweight. And the strength difference between real middleweights and welterweights is big. I have knockout power like he hasn't felt before. He got dropped by Gilbert Burns. Gilbert is an incredible fighter, but I think Gilbert Burns is one of my favorite fighters. But if I'm a lot heavier, I'm a lot bigger. When I punch you, it's different. And when you wrestle me, good luck. I think he has great wrestling. I have great wrestling for MMA, and I can do anything. We saw that now with Bo Nickel and Renita Ritter. Yes, wrestling is great, but if it doesn't work, what are you going to do now? Another point, we've seen Chamzat winning first rounds. When it goes to number 2 and 3, that's where he starts to struggle. For me, the longer the fight goes, the better it goes, because the first round, I will come out hard. Second round, exactly the same, and I won't go away until I get my hand raised. And that's the big difference between me and Chamzat.
So I think that is another question that was addressed to you on Twitter, on my Twitter, that do you agree with this perception that Chamzat will be like 1 or 2 rounder, and the longer the fight goes, the slimmer his chances will be?
Yes, 100%, because being hit by me, even if he doesn't get tired, being in there with me for 5 rounds is tough. And I think he hasn't felt that. Make no mistake, I think Chamzat is very, very good, and his wrestling is incredible. And do I think he can get me down? Yes, I do think he can take me down. It's fight. But I know I can take him down, and I know if he takes me down, I can get back up. That's the fight game. It's like saying somebody won't punch me. Of course they're going to punch me. We are both professional fighters. So yes, I think he can get me down. But when he gets me down, what's he going to do then? Then we're fighting on the ground, and then I'm getting back up. And every time it's going to be harder and harder, and I'm going to figure you out, and I'm going to come out. I'm going to come towards him. I'm not going to be on the defense. All these guys fight Chamzat and try to defend and run away from him and stay away from him. I'm not scared of that. When it comes to the physicality, when it comes to the strength, I am stronger and bigger. And like you said, every minute that goes past is going to get harder and harder. And I'm not going to back down. I'm just going to keep going forward until he breaks. So
can you tell us how big can we expect you to be inside the cage? Because I think Chamzat will walk around, I don't know, 215 maybe, something like that. And I expect that you will be bigger, as you said.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think of my size as that big of a weapon. It's just the way I put on my size, the way I'll probably be in the cage between 215 and 220. But it's not about just size. It's about strength. I'm a muscular guy. I'm a big middleweight. And the size is not the problem. It's what I can do with that size. The fact that I can keep going for 25 minutes full speed with that size.
Okay, so when we started, I told that you will be fighting Shakespeare Chimaev because you clapped back at his trash talk at some point. So what do you expect from this media build-up to this fight? Do you expect that this trash talk will be as hard, or you just need someone to throw you the ball to counter-attack? Because that's what you are the best, I think, when you were great in this build-up to Adesanya and to Strickland.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I always say this. I don't go out there and try to, create fake hype, fake beef. It's not my style. It looks dumb to me. If you respect me, I'll respect you. So if he stays in line, then I will spare him the embarrassment on the mic. But if he comes at me and he disrespects me, I will make him cry like all the others.
That's great to hear, because we are waiting for some fireworks during this build-up. But in one of your recent podcasts, which I've watched recently, I think that was about a week ago, you said that you don't like a tough guy trash talk. You like to approach in a more humorous way. So could you tell us who is your favorite trash talker, if you could compare yourself to other guys in the UFC?
I don't know. I don't think of trash talking like the tough guys. It doesn't work. Nobody's going to intimidate you. I'm the champion of the world. You're not going to intimidate me with words. The only thing we did, once it comes down to trash talk, is to entertain the fans. and to make each other look stupid. I think that's the only way you win, is to be smarter and more witty than your opponent. To be a tough guy is not going to work because we are all tough guys. I know he's a tough guy, I'm a tough guy, so you're not going to scare me with anything. So it's about, once you make people laugh, that's how you win. They're trash talks. So, and I think Conor is probably the best trash talker ever. I think Chael Sonnen in his days were great. Conor has been, obviously in his prime was amazing. But for me, I don't really compare my trash talk to anyone else. I think South Africans get my trash talk more than anyone in the world because that's how our humor works. It's never personal, it's just business.
Yeah, I agree. So this fight will be happening in Chicago. And I wonder where you bumped that this event in South Africa or in Africa in general still isn't happening.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for me to be able to defend my belt on home soil will be amazing. It's one of my life goals, but it's hard, for South Africa to host us. We have a couple of obstacles, but we are working at it, and it's going to happen eventually. It just takes some time, and it's a lot harder than I think a lot of people expect it to be to host such a massive event. Because it's the big arenas, the whole world needs to come over. So, but it's part of the process, and yeah, even though I would love to fight in front of South Africa, and that is a goal of mine, it's not something that I go, I'm not fighting because I'm not fighting in front of my own crowd. No, it's going to happen, and I'm going to make it impossible for the UFC not to come here because they want to come here. The people of South Africa wants them to come here, but as for now, there's just a little bit of logistics that we need to sort out. But I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm ready to fight. I'm fight ready, so I can't say no to fights just because, you only have this much time in the sport, so I want to make that count.
Okay, so you have addressed this topic in this mentioned by me podcast as well, and you said that there is a financial barrier because of the UFC ticket prices. So I've seen that, for example, for this event in Louisiana, where Dustin Poirier will be fighting Max Holloway for the third time, the nosebleeds tickets are costing $650. Do you think that UFC maybe is pricing out fans at this point? Because every event they are talking about another gate record, but it's hard not to beat the record when the prices are growing so significantly.
Well, I mean, if the crowds are selling out, then I guess supply and demand. But in South Africa, we have the exchange rate is the biggest problem. It's not necessarily that for Americans they can afford those tickets, but for South Africans, the exchange rate is so big, the difference in exchange rate from the South African rand to the dollar, that it's, and then you have to go on the average pay of South Africans. That makes it hard. So that's why we need a massive stadium. And I understand that the UFC, like a lot of people think they are, with the ticket prices are ridiculous, but they're the business. They understand what they're doing. They're selling out events. So it's obviously not too expensive, and if you're a business, you want to sell at the highest possible price, and that's what they're doing. So in terms of the UFC's pricing strategy, I can't really comment because I'm not part of the union or owners, but for South Africans and with the exchange rate, it's going to be hard for South Africans to afford those tickets. I mean, if you say $600, that's more than the average pay of South Africans.
So do you think that maybe PFL with this event, with their events in Africa, can pave the way for UFC, or we shouldn't compare them because it's a much smaller organization and the spectacle, the show is not even at this point?
Yeah, I think PFL coming to Africa and South Africa is incredible because we are getting more international exposure as South Africa to show that we can host these events, and more South African fighters are going to get the opportunity to fight in big international shows. But I think what PFL is doing is amazing. The business model is looking after the fighters, they're paying very good money, and that's great for the fighters. I'm not sure on how the return on that looks, but for me as a fighter, as a South African, it's massive. Because I have teammates, I have countrymen that are going to get the opportunity to fight in a big show like PFL. And maybe, yes, maybe this does show the UFC that the interest for the sport is there, because South Africans love MMA and the UFC. The sport is massive now in South Africa. So, yeah, I think it's a great stepping stone. But as of right now, I don't think we can compare PFL and UFC just yet.
Okay, I see. So let's get back to the sport. And if you beat Chamzatem Czimajewem, if you defend your title...
Beat Chamzatem Czimajewem.
When you beat Chamzatem Czimajewem, thanks for clarifying. What's next for you? Because you've been vocal about maybe trying to conquer another division, to go up to 205. But are you still interested in that? Because we've seen another champions like Ilya Topuria, like now Islam Makhachev, that they have to vacate their belts before they go up. And do you think that the era of double champions in the UFC has ended?
Let me tell you this. Of course, in all the goals that I've set for myself, being a double division champion is 100% what I want to do. But I'm in no rush. I'm still young. I said it, I want to make it very clear that I am the greatest middleweight. And right now, well, first, before changing divisions, right now the middleweight division is looking alive and well and exciting. You know, over the last year, we've seen the whole top 5 change, the fighters. I mean, there's so many exciting fights right now with Renita Ritter coming in. He's fighting Whitaker. There's Kyle Bahal and Imamov probably fighting. There's so many, of course, Chamzat's there, so many new faces in the top 5 that the whole division is new and exciting, and there's a lot of exciting fights. So I don't want to, hold up the division. I want to fight the best next guy until I am undoubtedly the best middleweight ever.
Okay, so you are just kind of ahead of my points that I was preparing to talk about, because there was a nice image when you talked to Israel Adesanya after his loss against Nasruddin Imavov, when you told him not to worry because he has the Anderson Silva status. So I wonder, how much do you need to tell about yourself that you are at the same level?
I think in my opinion, the things that Israel has done, the things that Anderson Silva has done, it's in a conversation that, like Anderson Silva, at the end of the career, he's lost so many fights, but it doesn't matter, he's still the GOAT, because everybody knew that he was past his prime. He didn't need to fight. He was just fighting, and I think it's a personal thing. I think it's opinions of people, because people are always saying it's either Adesanya or Anderson Silva. And that's where you're in that conversation. And I think there's no way to measure it, but in my opinion, it's not necessarily how many opponents you fought, how you defended your bout, but who you fought and how you did it. And I think that's a big thing for me, is making sure I fight the best of the best, like I've been doing. I don't try to pick opponents, easier fights. If you look at my route in the UFC, I've had the toughest opponents, and I don't mind that. I prefer it that way, because I don't want to have a win where people say, oh, but this guy wasn't supposed to fight. Yeah, no. I have only fought the best, and that's the only way I want it, because the only way to prove that I'm the greatest is by fighting the best.
I cannot agree more with you. So there is another question from fan from Twitter. If you could say, when was the point, at which point after which fight you thought that you've proved yourself, that you belong to top 10? And there is a notation from the fan. If you want to say that you've always believed it, save it for Nina, and please give some specifics.
Yeah, that's funny. I've always believed that I was going to be a world champion. But once you get into the UFC, it's a different level, because you're fighting and you almost build these people up in your mind, because you've never had that opportunity. After beating Brunson, I was in the top 5, but that performance, I knew I had to make some changes. I had a great camp, everything, but I just knew the level in the top 5 was crazy. And of course, then I got the call to fight Robert Whitaker, and I said to myself, this is the big moment. He is a former champion. He only lost to a close decision to Adesanya before that. And I knew that fight was going to put me in either I'm a good top 5 fighter or I'm going to be the best in the world. And after beating Robert Whittaker, I knew I was going to be world champion. There was not a single doubt in my mind.
I see, and I can tell you from my point of view, after this fight, I told in one of programs on Polish YouTube that I will never count you out, because I thought that that Robert Whittaker, I have to be honest with you, I thought that Robert Whittaker was massive favorite in this fight, and there were some reasons why. But after that fight, I thought that I will never count you out.
There were a lot of reasons why.
Yeah, so the way that you've been talking about the division a few minutes ago clearly shows that you are taking notice on everything that's happening inside top 15. So what do you think about these latest things, especially Rainier the Reader dismantling Bonical and his announced fight with Whittaker?
Yeah, I think he's active. I think he's big. I think he's a good fighter. I think his grappling is phenomenal, world class. I've had the opportunity to train with Rainier, and he's a really, really good fighter. He's big for the division. He's tall, and he has a confidence in him. So I like that. I think he has a interesting style that works for him, and he makes it work. And you know, for me, when people ask me, I had no doubt that he was going to beat Bonical because he has more in his arsenal, and I'm very excited to see him versus Whittaker. This is a big, big fight for the division, and you know, obviously for Robert Whittaker, you know, he's in a place in his career. I don't think he's washed. I don't think he's old. He's still young, and he can still do it. I think this fight is going to be big for him, and this is going to be Rainier Ridder's biggest test. But you know, Rainier is a very good fighter. He is great at what he does, and he makes it work for him. And of course, Robert Whittaker, there's no denying how great he is.
So Robert Whittaker recently said that when he was watching the story of Aleksander Volkanovski, he's been thinking about the fairy tale ending of his career. Do you think that he can climb that ladder again, and do you see a rematch in the future?
Well, if there's anybody that can do it, it's Robert Whittaker. I think he's one of those guys where we've seen him come back and do great things. I think if he's going to do that, you know, he can do it. I think he has a hell of a task ahead of him. You know, he's lost 2 out of his last 3, and that's at least 2 or 3 big you get another shot. And you know, if he can stay active and stay injury free, then of course, yes, he can do it. But you know, the division is growing, and there's some killers in our division. And he is one of them, but you know, he's going to have to work, and he's going to do it fast.
Okay, so we are just getting to the end of this interview. But as I said, I've got a few more questions from Twitter, and of course there had to be some questions linked to the KSW and to Polish fights. And the first one is: are you still taking notice on what's going on in KSW, or you just don't have time for that, simply?
No, of course. I take notice on any fights. I love fights. You know, I'm a very good friend of Phil de Vries. I think he's an incredible champion and a great guy. You know, KSW has always been, you know, it's one of those things where it was terrible for me that I had to leave. It was something I loved fighting for KSW, and you know, you never know. One day when I'm done, I would love to maybe go back to KSW. I think they are an amazing organization. They treat the fighters the best. They treat every fighter like a king. And yeah, I'm very thankful and very glad for the opportunity to fight for KSW. And I hope most fighters get the opportunity like that. The level of KSW is incredibly high. And I think it's an amazing promotion. And even if anybody ever in Europe, definitely go check out a show. I think I still try to follow it. I watch the Eddie Hall and Mariusz Pudzianowski fights. They've always put up great super fights, but you know, the show itself has been it's unbeatable. You know, being there live, there's not an organization in the world that puts you on a show like that.
So at the same event with Pudzianowski and Hall, we had a main event between Adrian Bartosiński and Andrzej Grzebyk. It was for 170 belt. And the champion Bartosiński tore his bicep within the first 2 minutes of the fight, but still he managed to fight through whole distance, still throwing some punches with the left hand, and it was widely acknowledged as the greatest fights in KSW history. But after that event, the director of KSW, Wojsław Rysiewski, was asked to give his list of 5 greatest fights in the KSW history, and at the spot number 5 was your fight, the first one between you and Roberto Soldic.
Yeah, that was an absolutely incredible fight. I mean, it was back and forth. He was just coming forward, throwing bombs like he does. Yeah, that was a crazy fight. That's one of the biggest fights in my career. You know, going out there, my first KSW fight, fighting for that belt, and seeing a show like that, that was incredible. But like I said, every time you go to KSW, the fights are wild. It's great. But yeah, that first Soldic fight, even the second one was a great fight. Not a great ending for me, but you know, it was that first Soldic fight was absolutely crazy. I watched that fight a lot, both of them actually.
I see. So the last question from me, and I have to keep you accountable for this one. When we were talking before your first bout with Sean Strickland, when you grabbed the title, you said that Poland is one of your favorite places to go, and you have to come back to Poland. But it's been a while, I think 1.5 years, right? And you still didn't come here. So what's going on?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you know, life is busy. You know, a lot of fights, a lot of things happening. But I promise you this, me and my fiance have spoken about this. Within the next year, I will be in Poland. I promise that.